Let's go live. Yeah, ready to go. Going live now, and we'll just give that a moment to catch up. It says we're live. I think it caught the last few seconds of what you were speaking about, but there's like a 20-second delay when I use YouTube Studio. So we're here with Kieran, one of the co-founders of Illuvium, and we just want to learn more about Illuvium, and we're going to open it up to questions. If you have a really good question and we cover it, please leave your Twitter handle along with the question, and the top 10 best questions are going to get access to the private beta, but that doesn't mean you're going to get a head start or anything. That won't translate to the public version, but you will have that experience and knowledge to get ahead of everyone else. So, Kieran, welcome. Thanks for taking the time to join us for this AMA. We also have CH from the Crypto Rabbit Hole. You can check out his channel as well. He makes great content. He's also here in Taiwan, and we meet up for like crypto sessions. So, Kieran, welcome. Please tell us about yourself. No, no one. Rarely does anyone have an excellent start. We all make those mistakes. We panic like immediately when we're new to investing. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Hey, they say they can't hear you talking, so I just need to add one thing uh, to make sure it's going through. I'm sorry about that. Okay,
That's all right.
sorry, Kieran. Can you talk a little bit there? Just to
Yeah,
test.
can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay. Now we're covered because I had you in the Zoom, but it didn't translate over to the live stream. I'm sorry about that. Can we start over
That's
again? Yeah.
that's good. Now no one knows where I live.
They missed out on that. It was very good information that the people missed out on. But let's cover a little bit about yourself and the team. I do have some follow up questions about that. Um,
Of
yeah.
course. Yeah, so my name's Kieran. I'm one of the three brothers that co-founded Illuvium back in early 2021. And we've got a team of 170 to 180. It kind of fluctuates a little bit, that are all full-time working on the project. My journey in crypto started back in around about 2016 when ETH first launched. I was just mentioning it was funny that we're talking about houses because I was just about to put my first deposit on a house. And then I found Ethereum and I was like, this is so much better than Bitcoin. I think this is going to be the future of money, blah, blah, blah. And I somehow ended up losing money. And yeah, so I didn't have the best experience when I first started in crypto. So I left to found a food tech startup. We ended up having a partnership with DoorDash. It was all about uh, ordering and delivering burgers in particular, which is a little bit of a niche. But yeah, I did that for 3 or 4 years. And then my oldest brother, who was actually our first investor, Kane Warwick, he runs Synthetics Protocol. He was very keen to get me back into crypto, and I was pretty burnt. Like when you save up a deposit for a house over a 4 or 5 year career in retail, retail is not the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Running a, a store, I was pretty burnt. And in the end, I just went, you know what? Like his protocol has gone to a valuation of astronomical proportions. So why not give it a shot? And so I started trading, and then I ended up. I'm a massive gamer at heart. Like the amount of different games that we played growing up as brothers is just stupid. It was pretty much just tennis and gaming. And so I stumbled
Top three games
upon
just off the top of your head. Top three games.
GoldenEye, Total Annihilation, and it's tough. Probably Fight Night, I want to
Okay.
say.
Okay.
Fight
Yeah.
Night 3, though.
Yeah.
Fight Night 3 specifically. 4, 5 were just absolute terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good combination. There's so many more, but yeah. Yeah.
Sorry to
But
derail you, but yeah, that's kind of
no, no,
what
no, no.
just kind of curious because yeah, you are making a game, and I was wondering like where did some of this inspiration come from for like Illuvium, and then some of the rest of the ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean World of Warcraft, like MMOs. I played a stupid amount of World of Warcraft. I played Guild Wars. I played uh, League of Legends, like all of those sort of really, I need a really addictive,
Hmm.
immersive game. But the problem is once I get addicted, it's like crack to
All
me.
in.
I'm just sitting there. I'm just like, give me my game, give me my game. So,
And then it's like
uh,
10 years later, like, oh, what did I do with that time?
yeah, what happened to my life? No
Yeah.
wonder my tennis career went out the
Yeah.
window. But yeah, so I stumbled upon gaming in Web3, and I'd already pitched my brother on a whole bunch of other ideas that he was like, this is terrible, like get away from me. Just no, no, no. And then I was like, okay, I found gaming, and Aaron is our game designer, one of my brothers. He's been into designing games for the past like 10, 15 years. So I knew I had him, but the first person I needed to convince was Grant, who ended up being our art director. And he was super, super hard, just purely because he has a huge brand in CGI. He's a top 10 modeler, or was when he was doing it in the world. And I really, I said to him, if we can just create some sort of like collection or something, like a little game or something,
Mhm.
then and use your graphics, like if you can give me some characters, then we'll have something there. But we decided from that point, I was able to convince Grant. It took me a couple of weeks, and then from there we went and spoke to Aaron, got him on board. And then it pretty much has just been a whirlwind ever since, from the capital raise that we did was one of the largest at the time. No one was really doing GameFi. It was the first time someone had, created this decentralized governance system that we have where power goes back to the players. And, fast forward to today, and we've got our beta for Arena, which is one of our games out, Illuvium Zero, which is our city builder, kind of similar to like SimCity, is very, very close to launching. And then there's this beautiful, immersive open world, which I think most people are excited about, that is also very, very close to coming out in beta form. That's where we're at.
Nice. A very impressive brotherhood. Just I'm really glad my brothers like aren't that successful, just so I don't have to compete with that. So I kind of see like, okay, you got three brothers, three entrepreneurs, three people building in different spaces, which is pretty awesome. I'd love to know more about the team. You said you have 180 employees. Like, where are they located? Are there offices? Are there like what kind of fields are they working in?
Yeah, so our team is what makes illuvium, right? Like
Mhm.
it's not all three co-founders bring a special skill set that I
Mhm.
think is required across the board, but none of us had built a game before. And I mean, Aaron had designed a lot of games, but he'd never actually put it into practice and gone and fully released one. And Grant has obviously done graphics for 15 years plus, and so he's the reason that the graphics are so high level. But it's really the team that is implementing it, and so they're distributed across, I think now we're at about 40 countries, which is
Oh,
pretty crazy. And we've only got 14 or 15 that are in Australia, and the rest across the world. We work as a fully decentralized studio. So we say to people, you can work as, whenever you want, however you want. And we've basically gone and hired experts in their field across the entire flow of in art. Our concept artists have worked at Blizzard, Riot, that type of stuff. Then you've got some of our animation guys have worked on movies like uh, what is so you got like Star
Mhm.
Wars,
Lucasfilms.
get all the
Yeah.
Lucasfilms, yeah, Guild of Guardians, I think it is, or Guild of the Galaxy,
Oh,
something like
Guardians of the
that.
Galaxy.
Guardians,
Yeah.
Guardians, sorry, God, I know I get
that
mixed up with that
MCU.
game.
that was a very dad way to like pronounce something like very popular. It's like, yeah, Game Station. Yeah, you have this Game
Yeah,
Station.
yeah, no.
Yeah.
So like, we basically said we don't have the ability. If we've been trying to compete with mainstream studios, never did we look at Web3 and go, okay, let's make that the standard, because we know that in 10, 15 years time, a lot of those mainstream studios are going to come across. And so we didn't have the ability to go and hire 1,000, 2,000 people, which is usually what it takes to build a AAA game. So we just decided, let's go and poach the best people in the world across engineering, operations, marketing, art, all of the different departments. And that's how we've been able to build such a nice looking game with really good functionality and in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, it's very impressive because even though your team isn't as big as the other AAA studios, I think it's significantly bigger than a lot of other like blockchain teams like that are building in the Web3 gaming space.
100%. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I say that mainstream studios look at us, right? And at one point we had like 210 or 215 people, and we sort of we hit the bear market, and when we got plenty of money in the vault still, and revenue generation is on its way, but we're still considered extremely small when you compare us to an Activision or a
Mm-hmm.
Ubisoft or whatever. So I used to say, we're tiny compared to a AAA studio. And then all of a sudden, once we started saying we were AAA, we got a whole bunch of other teams that were like, we're also AAA, but we've got like 12 people. And I'm like, that like, we shouldn't be saying we're AAA.
Yeah.
I came out and I was like, I'm a marketing dude. I want to hype us up and whatever. But yeah, it's crypto and it's pretty wild. You can kind of say and do whatever you want and get away with it.
You
Yeah.
also just launched last year. So the fact that you guys went from last year to, 200 people, I mean, that growth is pretty substantial. And you start early on, so the compounding will only get bigger and better.
Yeah, 100%. That's why I say Riot needs to look out, because we've set this studio up in a way that our core contributors, they love working for us. Like there's a lot of people. Obviously, you can't keep everyone happy,
Mhm.
but for the most part, we have extremely strong retention rates for the amount of growth that we've had. And it's because we do things differently. We don't put people in a little box and say, this is all you can do. People wear multiple hats. And if they think that they can do something or help out in a different area, they're fine to do so. We gave a lot of the early hires a bunch of tokens, which is the equivalent of like a share
Yeah,
plan
equity.
in equity in a standard company. And so we got this buy-in. People in our team, they see the vision that we have, this 20-year vision, and I speak to them so regularly, and they say like, this is really, really unique what you're building. And my thing is, we want to keep on building up our team as we go along. Once the market recovers, we're going to do a huge capital raise that will allow us to get to that, no matter what, regardless of anything, that 20-year vision that we have. And so but we're not just going to go out there and start hiring any old person. We're going to keep this model of experts, because we find that if we get the right person, they can end up being 10 times more effective than, a junior or someone that just doesn't have the experience.
Right, you're not just burning money on headcount. You're using money effectively to actually build, rather than just say like, "Oh, we have a really big team."
If we didn't, we wouldn't be able to, there's a reason that we can say, hey, come and try our private beta 2 that has 150 fully fleshed out modeled characters. Like, you cannot. I got told I was crazy for saying that we're going to be able to do that, and
Mhm.
I think we were delayed by about 4 or 5 months for that first beta, but it was still like AAA studios struggle to get that kind of output.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be possible if we didn't have the team that we did. So I'm forever thankful for the dedication that these guys put in each day.
That's awesome. I just want to give people who aren't familiar Illuvium just a little bit of background on what Illuvium is. So can you talk about Illuvium and that ecosystem? Because it's not just one game; it's a lot more than that.
Sure. So it's essentially, it's the first AAA interoperable blockchain game. So that's a very fancy way of saying it's a universe of games that are all interconnected, and they work seamlessly, utilizing all of the same assets. And so essentially you start by needing resources, and those resources are what allow you to capture alluvials. They allow you to craft weapons, they allow you to craft armor, and these are all the things that make you better in the auto battler, which I'll explain in a second. And those resources you need to get from Illuvium Zero. Now, Illuvium Zero is like an industrial city builder game where you've got yourself some land, and you start building structures on that land. You start extracting those resources. If you don't have the land, there's only a finite amount of plots. So far, we've sold 20,000, but there's potentially going to be 100,000 in total. And so if you don't have that, you can go on to our Illuvidex, which is like our decentralized marketplace. That's where you can go and buy fuel. Once you have that fuel, you go into the overworld and you start the creature capture battler. And your job is to go around and not just capture alluvials, but you can harvest plants. You can, as I said, you can craft weapons. You can fuse the alluvials together to go from like a stage 1 to a stage 2 to a stage 3 if you have enough. But the really, really cool thing is, in a normal sort of like, if we take Pokemon, for example, an open world exploration game with capturing and battling, the battle system is usually fairly basic, right? Like they focus on the overworld, they focus on the graphics and stuff like that, and it gets, in my opinion, left behind a little bit, and it can make it not as addictive and not as competitive or as immersive as what I believe we've done, and that's us mashing together another genre, which is an auto battler, which is essentially auto chess. Dota has one. League of Legends, Teamfight Tactics is another one. Talking games that have 50, 60 million players at any given time, we've introduced that into our battle system. And that's really when the penny dropped for me, when I was playing the overworld for the first time. And I was just playing Pokemon, essentially. Like, I'm just walking around the world, I'm harvesting my plants, I'm getting my weapons prepared. I just cured some shards. I then found an encounter, and you're using your ranger has these mag boots which you've got to collect, and this jetpack, and you go around and you see these little encounters, you shoot them, and that allows you to basically go inside the encounter. But inside that encounter, you end up on a battle board, which is very similar to Teamfight Tactics. And when I first saw that, I was like, but I was just playing a different game.
Right.
Like, I've never experienced that. It's like playing Super Smash, but then being able to port into the Mario Kart version without needing to buy 2 different games.
Yeah,
And
like,
then
I would kind of sum it up as, yeah, you are in the real world, like you're in the Pokemon world, you're exploring, and then you jump into a battle with a Pokemon. But instead of just selecting each move, it is an auto battle / real-time strategy thing where, depending on the position of where you place your team, it can have different results on the outcome of the battle.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. And so, yeah, so what, and then when you think about it, you do that gameplay loop, and gameplay loops are what all developers should be focused on, right? Like, if you optimize that gameplay loop,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to make an addictive game, right? Which is what everyone should be trying to do out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you find yourself, and you might have gone into an encounter, you might have caught an alluvial, but then you run out of shards. Now, how do you get shards? You need to go back into Illuvium 0, tend to your land. Once again, if you don't have that, then you can buy those resources off the Illuvidex, but you have to start the loop again,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're continually going around this gameplay loop, but you'll quickly find that the alluvials that you capture, they might not be the best synergy together, right? Like, if you have 1 water, 1 earth, 1 fire, that's not a good team, right? Like, you want to have a good composition. You want to have, like, ideally, if you're going in, maybe a couple of fire and maybe 3 earth, or if you want, 3 water, 3 nature. And it's hard to capture them. There's 185 alluvials for you to capture. Plus, on top of that, there's different stats for each of these alluvials. So you might capture a stage 3, a tier 5, which is what we call like our number 1 characters. Ramfire, for example, is the pterodactyl that just rains down a godly firestorm on people in the overworld, in the arena. You might capture a Ramfire that's like 30% weaker than someone else. And so therefore you're like, God, I need to go get another Ramfire because now my Ramfire isn't as effective. So there's just so much that has gone into the thought process and game design.
Yeah, and each of these alluvials, these characters you battle with, are represented as tradable NFTs, right?
100%. Yes.
And I think that's where part of the revenue also comes in from Illuvium, the marketplace fees, the trading these NFTs, and that's just one of the ways Illuvium plans on generating revenue.
Yeah. So our tokenomics are a little bit unique and a little bit different to what most people or what most developers out there are doing. And we give 100% of revenues back to people who are staked in the protocol. So all of the different revenue generating things in Illuvium Zero, there's things like speed ups if you don't want to wait for your buildings to be built in the time frame that they normally take. You can pay a little bit of ETH and it'll speed it up. If you want to build some blueprints which allow you to create skins, it'll cost you a little bit of ETH. If you go into the overworld, curing shards costs you a little bit of ETH. Traveling costs you a little bit of ETH. And so there's all of these sinks literally everywhere. Then on top of that, you've got merchandise, you've got in real life events, and all of this revenue goes into a vault. And then every now and again, that vault will trigger and it will purchase ILV back off the market, right? So at that point, we take that ILV and we distribute it proportionately back to the people that are staked in the protocol. So it's this super weird, unique economic model where people are like, investors are like, we want players to generate as much revenue as possible, because it doesn't just go to this giant mega development company. It literally gets given back to the players. So it's just a little bit unique.
Yeah, I like that business model because you are rewarding the people that are playing and investing in the game. But how will you generate revenue long term to keep funding the team and keep funding development? Like where does the team get their funds, like in the future, that down the line from this?
Yeah, good question. So we in our tokenomic model, we thought about that and we're like, okay, what are we going to do there? And so we have 14, I think 1.3 maybe, or 1.4 million tokens that are in the treasury. We stake them as well. So they don't get yield rewards from it, but they get revenue distribution rewards.
Oh, that's good.
And our feeling is, if we do what we think we will, if we look at some of the revenues that Axie was making last year, and that was with a single sink in trading volume, right? Like that's all they had.
Yeah.
If we can do anything like that, then that 15 or 14%, whatever it is more than enough for us to fund the team for the next, infinitely and beyond.
Awesome. So I'd love to talk about more about revenue. Do you potentially see other forms of revenue coming in? Potentially like partnerships, collabs with brands, maybe advertising in the Illuvium metaverse?
Yeah, so definitely not advertising. That's something that we really want to stay away from. But brand partnerships, I would love to be able to reveal the one that we have that we're working on right now. It's a huge collaboration, and it's actually going to work with one of our side projects, or not really side projects, but our PFP project, which we call Illuvatars. So that's basically, think of it like collecting Pokemon cards, but you're collecting alluvial cards, right? And these things you can basically, there's 5 slots on them, so you can modify them and add things like hats and glasses and tattoos and different stuff like that. We are going to do a bunch of brand collaborations with Illuvatars where there'll be a collection with that brand, right? So we'll go to maybe a luxury fashion designer, maybe a very large sporting organization. There's there's a huge amount of, I think we've got like 15, 16 different organizations or companies that we're talking to at the moment about these collections. And that's how we're also going to really, really tap into mainstream adoption, because we want to link that, oh, that brand is real, like I've seen that brand for the last 30, 40 years, or I've worn that brand, or I own that brand, and then bringing it into our universe with Illuvitas is just our way of saying, now you get to flex with your PFP, because when you win, that's what's shown, right? Like it's your PFP, you can have emotes and stuff. So if you're wearing a brand that you really, really love and no one else has that, it's kind of like, hey, look at me. Not only did I beat you, but I'm all blinged out as well.
Yeah, I mean, any potential for like memes in there too. Like I'd love if I beat somebody, my profile picture to show, and it's like the crying Michael Jordan meme.
So we've made our own memes. So we have some of our emotes. There's like one Atlas, which is like our cutest of all. It's a stage 1. It's like blue, massive ears, and he's like got 2 thumbs up to his opponent, right? And so we've done like things like that. There's another one which is like a puppet master. So it's one of our main characters, and it's holding up puppets, and it's like, I'm literally playing with your mind.
I love
and
it.
So yeah, there's definitely that.
Nice. Now talking more about like some technical stuff, you guys are building on Immutable X, and I'd like to know why you chose that blockchain.
Couple of reasons. So we had a few choices that we looked at. We looked at Matic. We looked at Optimism, but the main thing was we wanted to stay on ETH, right? So we didn't want to build our own chain. We didn't want to go onto a side chain, and because we think, and this stems down from our brother being a very big ETH maxi, we think that not only are the most developers right now on Ethereum, but we think that a lot of these side chains, once the throughput is reduced, is increased with Ethereum, that a lot of these other side chains will die off. And so we don't want to be in a position where we're not on main. Yeah, where we have to move or whatever. And so like we looked at Solana and stuff like that, and it just wasn't for us. But then you face the issue of, okay, this is not scalable, right? Like ETH layer 1 is just absolutely not scalable. We're talking about I just spoke about multiple microtransactions that you're doing just constantly throughout the game. Imagine if it was like MetaMask. You'd get a mainstream gamer is going to be like, I don't care if I can make $1 million off this. I would rather just jump off a bridge.
Right.
Like,
it's not a good user experience.
No, yeah. So that's when we started looking at, okay, we need to stay on ETH. What are our choices for layer 2s? And we looked at like Optimism, we looked at ZK Sync, we looked at Immutable. And the thing that we really liked about Immutable was that they had already built Gods Unchained, which is a TCG that launched probably 4 years ago now. And so they had a lot of learnings, and they built Immutable to try and scale Gods Unchained, because they were like, this is just not it's not applicable, and we can't continue. Our users are having a terrible experience. And so we did a deep dive in all of those different protocols, and we also liked that they are an Australian-based team. They're literally in the same city as us. Their main offices as us. And so we were able to go out there and say, here's our roadmap. This is all the stuff that we want to build. There's all the type of NFTs that we want and the gameplay. And they really saw that vision and went, wow, this is going to be a big project. And so they worked really closely with us and have done so all the way through. And I'm so glad that we made that choice, because there's obviously they've had delays as well, but now both our teams have gotten to a stage where we're doing heavy testing and load testing and throughput testing, and it's going to be a seamless experience being on. You won't even know that you're playing a blockchain game, especially if you're going through the free to play route, which is across all of our games. You don't have to pay to play. It's literally just free. And then if you get used to it and you like it and collecting, you don't even need a wallet to play our game, right?
Oh,
Like
that's
that,
awesome.
yeah, that comes later, where we're building in this non-custodial wallet where we'll hold your assets for you. And then at a certain point, it's like, hey, by the way, like maybe they see in a guild or a forum or something online, like, what is this Illuvidex? And they can go and sell these assets, and they go, okay, well, I'm going to migrate now. And it's a push of a button, and all of a sudden they're now an adopted crypto user.
Yeah, that's amazing, because you're going to have users right away, and if they want to continue playing, they are participating in the ecosystem, and then it's like a step-by-step process to introduce them into the crypto side.
100%.
And
Yep.
as for the game, is it PC only, or I mean, browser only, or what do you see for like the platforms?
Sure. So Illuvium Zero, which is the city builder game, that's on mobile. So that's
Okay.
going to be Android, iOS, and there's also going to be a web browser version of it
Mhm.
as well.
When can we
Uh,
expect to see that, like live or in beta?
in beta, we try not to give dates,
Okay.
but it's very soon. It's like, yeah, that's all I'll say. We just had a meeting with our CTO Johnny, who's really going deep on, and he's an excellent Unity developer, which is the platform that we're building it on. And he's saying, like, there's a few more things to implement, couple more animations now, a little bit more polishing, and we're gonna have a build ready to go there. So that's the only thing is there that I would say is that may be the browser first version. It's a
Mhm.
little bit trickier to get it onto Android, and then again, even trickier to get it onto iOS. So that will be the staged rollout for that one. Then Arena right now is desktop, so PC and Mac, but we have just engaged, I think a couple of months ago now, one of the best teams in the world at porting PC games over to mobile. And so that will allow people to play the auto battler component of Illuvium on mobile. And then the overworld, it's way too big for mobile. I'm not going to even pretend like we've thought about doing anything with that. Maybe in like 2030 or something like that.
Mhm. Awesome. I think we got a lot of awesome information. CH, do you have any questions before we go to the AMA?
But no, I think just from, what you talked about, it sounds really exciting. Looks like you guys really have a great team going, and you really know the game inside out in terms of how you're implementing on a blockchain basis. Not a whole lot of teams are executing on a really optimal basis in that regard. So hats off to you. I'm excited to see what you guys have in store.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Cool. So let's jump
Absolutely.
into the AMA. So questions from the chat. Matt wants to know what steps are the Illuvium team taking to prevent the SEC and other regulating bodies from classifying Illuvium as a security.
So we've already been we've been working on this for a long time. We have some of the best lawyers in Australia that are very close to crypto. We're talking directly to the Australian Treasury Department. We're talking direct, and when I say directly, I mean like we were literally in their office a month ago, and we're talking directly with the ATO, which is the Australian Taxation Office. And so all of the regulatory bodies that are in Australia, we have worked very, very closely with. And we have a legal opinion from a huge, let's just call them one of the largest crypto, I don't know, you can't even call it a project. It's one of the largest crypto brands in America that their lawyers went through and had to do a whole bunch of stuff to ensure that before they put us on their platform, that
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
that
That
we
you're
were not
compliant.
deemed,
Yeah.
yeah, that we were compliant and that
Mhm.
we were not deemed, and not just not deemed to be in the future.
Mhm.
And I mean, we spent a stupid amount on ensuring that we were okay in Australia. This team spends 50x that on ensuring that the projects that they work with are compliant. And we have a legal opinion from both an Australian and an American team to say that we are not a security, we are a game. And so right now we're doing absolutely everything that we can, everything that we're asked to do, and we will always be compliant. You know, if that changed, then we can, you know, we can work it out. We can go back to the drawing board. And the good thing is that we have we were fully decentralized from even before TGE. So if something was to happen where you know, regulation came in on DAOs or on, you know, securities and stuff like that, we go back to the council, go back who are elected in by the community, and we'd change things. You know, we can
Yeah.
always modify it.
I think that's the right approach, because right now, you know, regulatory certainty is still not optimal. Everything is still kind of up in the air, you know, with the SEC going after so many different groups and players. So I think that's the right approach, just being flexible and being able to adopt to or adapt to different, you know, scenarios. So that's great to hear.
Yeah. Be ready
Yeah.
so you don't have to get ready.
Exactly. I mean, there's some we had some pretty crazy advisors that I don't want to name on here and throw them under the bus, that were just like, nah, don't speak to lawyers, just go all out. But we decided, no, we're going to take the good route. And if you know, certain things came through and regulation changed and whatever, we've documented and we can show from day one that we've tried to do absolutely everything we can. We understand that a decentralized autonomous organization is very hard to define, but we're listening to the smartest experts in law and taxation across the world. And so we're doing absolutely everything we can to just make a fun game for the players.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. So people don't have to be afraid that, oh, the SEC is going to sue them. This coin's going to tank. Like in the event that happens, because that has happened in the past with projects that the SEC did find as a security. So number 2, Midwest Wind asks, can you elaborate more on what were some of your terrible ideas you had initially?
Yeah, sure. So there were a bunch of like lottery based stuff, like gambling based stuff. Like I think I wanted to start like a casino, and then there was like a card game thing, like not as in like a TCG, but like again, like a blackjack type game. God, what else did I come up with? There was some stupid DeFi protocols with like my problem was I was investing in like, I was in the yield farming craze. And so there were so many tokens that I went into, like kimchi, pickle, Dracula, like just stuff that
Just
if you look
degen
them up,
shit.
Yeah.
just super degen stuff. And so it was mostly like derivatives of that, where I would see that and I'd be like, yeah, but I can do it a little bit better. And the problem was, you know, I'm not a dev, right? So I would have to go, but I'm good at being able to go and convince people, hey, this is a good idea.
Mhm.
And so yeah, there was a whole bunch of degen shit that I sent his way, and he was like, dude, just get away from me. Like, I can't put my name to this.
Yeah.
You're insane. But GameFi, he definitely thought that that was going to be a winner.
Nice. All right. Next up, Midwest Wind again as asking about the non-land owners that play Zero for free. Can they generate fuel to play the free version of the Overworld game?
No, that would ruin the economy, and unfortunately, they can have just as much fun. Like, I don't get this, and it'll be okay once we do turn it into more of like a Clash of Clans type game,
Mhm.
but there are millions of people out there that enjoy playing an idle clicker, which essentially is what it is. Build a building. It's going to take 30 minutes for this to finish. That would drive me crazy. I've got a whole bunch of land, but I've already put people in, a person in place. Our lead moderator, Fraggy, is gonna manage my land for me. That's not, the most exciting thing in the world, but if we were to allow people to go in and play the game and earn, it would very, very quickly turn into a situation like, not naming any names, other big games that went up and then went crashing down. We don't want to ruin our economy. But if you do find that type of gameplay fun, where you can certainly do everything for free, but yeah, you won't be able to earn off it.
Got it. Okay, number 4. Sullivan Kokek wants to know if when Illuvium releases, will it be free to play?
Across every single title we ever release, there will always be a free-to-play version. Yeah.
He also is asking more about how the multiple games tie together and wants to know if you can play the arena in the open world game or are they totally separate?
So it's an interesting one, and it's one that I think a true IBG, it needs to, which again is an interoperable blockchain game, it all needs to span off one hub, right? So you're in the overworld, and I think that's where that hub is. So if we end up building a racing game, you go run over to the racing cart, to the racing track. If we're talking a dungeon crawler, there's like a little hatch that you go down, which is somewhere in the overworld, and bang, you're all of a sudden raiding with your friends in a PvP environment, trying to get as much loot as possible. So I believe that everything needs to be connected. There's some complications there in terms of right now, Arena definitely is built in that way where you go from the overworld and you can port in there. Illuvium Zero, because it's built on Unity and the rest of our game is built on UE5, there can be some complications there, but we're already starting to think about how can we make it that seamless experience, because when you're talking 9 AAA games that are all interoperable and all using the same assets, you just want to go over there and go over there. Like, you don't want to have to download a new client, get out. Like, that's not the experience that we're looking to deliver.
Excellent. Looking forward to that. Alex Margolin is asking, what can we expect from the first Illuvium Esports tournament?
I think it's going to be pretty intense. I don't know if I battled my brother at one point, and we put $1 million of ILV on the line. It sort of escalated. I think it was a Twitter post that I made, and he was like, "Bullshit, I'm better than you. I'll battle you." And I was like, "Well, let's bring it on." And then I was like, "Put your money where your mouth is." So we're going to use. We've got 1 million ILV tokens that we are classified for like gaming yield,
Mm-hmm.
and we have the ability to put on huge prize pools. At one point, that was worth something like $2.2 billion. So, market's down at the moment. Ideally, once we start our esports tournaments, the market recovers. We have the ability to start utilizing those tokens and putting on huge prize pools. But not only that, the gameplay, like we made up these rules, right? Like that tournament that match that Grant and I had, it's kind of like our childhood. We're like, okay, we can't do this, but if we just change XYZ rule, then it turns it into a competition. And so we just did stuff like that, and we were literally sweating bullets, like on camera, live. You can see like need to change our clothes like 10 times. So it's a really fun and exciting game to play. And so obviously that's the first thing, but then the cherry on top is just huge prize pools.
Looking forward to that. Awesome. So next up, we got Cryptish and wants to know what other community developed projects related to Illuvium the team is excited about, and if it is possible to collaborate with Illuvium. So like, what other projects out there and potential collabs?
Yeah, for sure. So we did something a little bit differently again to what most people did when we first launched, and we did a promotional NFT series. Once I realized how crazy our concept designers were and how fast they could work, I decided to go around to all of the largest DeFi protocols and say, hey, we're going to make a collaborative NFT with you. And if you post this in your Discord, and anyone who joins our Discord and is also a part of your Discord, we goes into the running to win this promotional NFT. And we might have had 10 or 100, or I think even one time we did 1,000. So that was how we first started looking at partnerships. Now we're starting to look at potential collaborations. We've got one with Galaxy Fight Club, which is coming up, which is a little bit of a smaller sort of indie type game, but I'm a big fan of. We have given them Arlen. So there's Arlen's our female ranger, who's our main character. And so this was done like 18 months ago. And basically there's 1,000 of those NFTs out there where you can go and battle as Arlen in this collaborative, this interoperable battlefield where you've got Bored Apes coming in. I think you've got like Cool Kitties, you've got owl characters. So we've done that sort of collaboration, but now I'm really looking forward to doing collaborations with real big AAA games that are coming out, like Civitas. They've got a huge team that's growing bigger and bigger by the week. Nor is another one that I want to do, which is like a super cool game where you actually go into, it's almost like Running Man, and if you die, your NFT is burned forever.
Oh wow.
And so that's a super cool concept that I love, and I think we'll try and do some sort of collaboration there. But yeah, we're open to it, but now we're only looking for the games that will prosper and actually build out what they say they are going to do. And so we do a little bit more vetting these days.
And when will Illuvifest be happening?
I don't have a date. So I wrote a tweet up last night because I started writing up the draft of the IIP. The way that our system, our governance system works is me as a co-founder, I can't just unilaterally decide to do things, right? I can come up with ideas, but then we need to write an IIP, which is Illuvium improvement proposal, put that through. The council then votes on it, and if it gets approved, then we go and do it. And so my thoughts would be probably November next year, which it starts to get a little bit hot in Australia around that time, which is not too hot, not like crazy hot, but it's a draft, right? And I saw some people were like, Australia, fuck Australia, like no one's gonna go there. I can't believe, I can't believe you would even dare do it there. Like, what's wrong with you? It's a draft. If the community is up in arms and they go, no, we want North America or we want Europe or whatever, I will say to those people, look, we have a lot of contacts in the Australian music industry through an agency, and a very, very good friend of mine in No Standing is the name of them. They've got access to some of the biggest artists literally in the world, and we don't know. Like, I ran in my last project, I ran a burger festival, right, which had like 7,000 people that attended. It was huge. And I know what I'm doing here. If you took me and you put me in North America or Europe or Asia, which venues are suitable? Like what partners, like from a logistics standpoint, I'm just way, way more comfortable with doing it in Australia, where I know we can pull it off, number one. But also, I've spoken to a whole bunch of people that are like DeFi experts that are like, fuck yeah, I want an excuse to go to Australia. Like,
Yeah.
otherwise, why else would I go there?
Yeah, if it's in Sydney, huge international airport, easy access. I know it's hard for people in North America or Europe, but it's easy for the people that are in Australia or Singapore because it's really not that far. Do you have any data on where the majority of the community is from, like North America, Europe, Australia?
This is not going to sound very. This is really not going to help my case when it comes to illuvium. But we have a very large portion that is in North America. The type of gamers that we're targeting are heavily based in North America. A lot are in like Korea. Even South America is quite big. Europe is quite big, but at the same time, because the founders are from Australia, we've been able to capture a large chunk of Australia as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's around about between 9 and 11% of our market comes from Australia, whereas North America is kind of like 35%. So it is, yeah.
Maybe you could pair it with any big crypto events coming up in Sydney, maybe the same week, or becoming a part of that, and that would already have the diehard crypto fans coming out anyway.
No. We're doing it. I've gone to many conferences, and to be fair, I've had a lot of fun at them. But as I said, I've run large scale events before,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to do it differently. The reason I'm not calling it a conference is because I think conferences are boring. Like at their core, it's like, go listen to people talk. Even me, I watch like in the audience and I'm like trying to get people riled up and whatever. And they're like on their phone. And I'm like, God, this is just doghouse. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Like, and so what the plan is, and this is a little bit of a leak, I guess, is the agenda would be in the morning sessions, you're listening to DeFi experts, right? Like people, we'll get them, right? Like I've got a really good network. We can tap into Kane's network. Santiago is another guy who is ex-Parafy that is going to help us out. We will get a whole bunch of people that are super interesting. We'll make sure that they're talking about really cool topics that people want to hear about. And that'll be all the way up to say like 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. Then that's when we go, okay, now you're crypto, you've been hit with enough knowledge. Now let's go and have fun. And you've got all these stages over there where you're literally walking into a festival where you've got some of the biggest artists in the world that are doing their acts. And that might go to like 11 or 12, and then it's heavy, right? Like I'm not saying it's not going to be a full-on day. Then you do it all again the next day, and yes, the next day people are going to be hungover, people are going to be like, oh, licking their wounds and stuff like that. But in my opinion, I've seen it when they're at a normal conference and it's the same shit anyway, right? They're just bored and they're like, oh, my boss sent me here to learn about crypto and this VC. So at least you can be sitting there like, I'm looking forward to something. And here's the thing, here's like the little ace up my sleeve here. I've met so many artists. Like as I said, this guy who runs No Standing is one of my best mates, and he's introduced me over the last 10 years to probably 20 to 30 top tier artists. And the amount of them that have said, what is crypto? Like, how do I learn? Like, I earn quite a bit of money. Some of these guys are earning $1 million per show. They're sitting there, they're like, I want to learn about crypto. And so the key here is, but then you've got these DeFi guys like Kane and Stanny and Anton who are running these protocols where if you said to them, hey, do you want to go and meet a Diplo or a Disclosure or a Rufus or whatever, they're going to sit there and be like, wow, that's an experience that I wouldn't necessarily be able to get exposed to. So we want to have these breakaway sessions where these DeFi experts are teaching the music artists what is DeFi, what is the best way to get introduced. So not only are you going to have the more in-depth talks in Web3, you're going to have the more basic sort of like 30 people in a room type conversations that are breakaways where the music artists are getting huge amounts of value and they're not just buying Shiba Inu coin
or
and
Ethereum
it just goes
Max.
up and goes, you know, or doing what I did back in 2020 when I was just buying every food coin in existence. They're getting knowledge. And I think those synergies put together is going to make an event that people will want to go to year after year after year. And the beautiful thing is, if we make revenue off it, and some of these conferences are just stupid, the amount of money that they charge per ticket. If we make money off this, once again, it doesn't go to Illuvium Corporation headquarters. It literally goes into that vault to buy ILV to be sent back to people who are staked in the protocol.
I love it. That's fantastic. That's like the best way to continue supporting the community, to get community involvement, to get the community to promote that event because they can benefit from it.
100%, exactly.
And I think we'll call it at that. If you have any last parting words for this excellent AMA.
So, whoops, sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, I think we'll call it there. Do you have any last words that you want to sign off with?
No, just make sure you join our Discord. We always do kind of crazy stuff in there. I usually do some personal giveaways. I've given away a couple of ETH lizards lately. Gave away one of my emotes, which was worth like $5,000 that I didn't realize, and I was like, Jesus, I've done that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun place to be. The founders and the core team are always chatting in there. So yeah, definitely check it out. And yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on. It's been a blast. Hopefully you got some good info out of it.
This was great. I want to go to Illuvium Fest. I want to participate in the game. You sold me. I'm jumping into the ecosystem.
No worries. Let me know, and
Same here.
I'll sneak a ticket in for you.
Awesome. Thanks. And yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed. Bye.
Cheers. See you then.
Take care, guys.